So the next disease we're going to speak about is known as karahatul maut, which is essentially hating death. Now, before I explain the details, there's no denying that death is a worrying reality. The thought of when we're going to die, how we're going to die, the experience of death, seeing the angels, being questioned in the grave, the day of judgment, all of these things can be quite scary, to be honest. And that's why hating death isn't always a disease. In fact, Aisha radiallahu anha once said to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, we all hate death. So it's actually a natural thing for us to have. But the reason why you hate death is what makes it a disease or not a disease. So if you hate death because you're, for example, just scared of the unknown, right? That's the only reason. You're scared of the unknown, but you accept the decree of Allah and you continue working for your akhirah, then no problem. That's not the disease. If you hate the death because it cuts off your ability to do more good deeds and get closer and closer to Allah, again, that's no problem with that. That's not the disease. In fact, if you hate death for that reason, it's actually praised. But if you hate death because of your attachment to the dunya, you're comfortable in this world, you're happy with its pleasures, you feel at home here and you don't want to let it go, this is the disease that we're talking about. And that's why this disease is actually very similar to hubbud dunya, loving the dunya, because people who have this disease of loving the dunya, they tend to have this disease too, because they don't want to leave the dunya, and so they hate this concept of death. And so when death is mentioned around these people, you find that they become irritated. You see the anxiety on their faces. They rush to change the subject, kind of as if they're rejecting death as a reality. But as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قُلْ إِنَّ الْمَوْتَ الَّذِي تَفِرُّونَ مِنْهُ فَإِنَّهُ مُلَاقِيكُمْ. The very death that you're desperately running away from, it will inevitably meet you. And that's the reality. Every single soul is going to die. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every soul will taste death, as Allah says in the Quran. Now let's say you have this disease of hating death. Does it have an impact on your life when you're alive right now? Absolutely. You find that if you have this disease, you begin to obsess over your health and safety. You monitor exactly what you eat. You count exactly how much sleep you're getting. You're careful where you go and what activities you do. And you wash your hands every half an hour. But don't get me wrong, looking after your health and safety is a must in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَإِنَّ لِجَسَدِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا. Your body has a right over you. Allah also says in the Quran, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. Do not throw yourselves into destruction. The issue isn't looking after your health and safety. The issue is when you obsess over these things only to prolong your life because of your attachment to this world. Not because it's an act of worship to look after your body. Rather, you do it to live as long as possible because you're so attached to the dunya. But realize that no matter how hard you try, how strong your body gets, how healthy you eat, how secure and confident you are in your house, death is going to come to you. As Allah says in the Quran, أَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا يُدْرِكْكُمُ الْمَوْتُ وَلَوْ كُنْتُمْ فِي بُرُوجٍ مُشَيَّدَةٍ. Wherever you may be, death will overcome you, even if you are in fortified towers. No matter how much you obsess over your health, when your time is up, your time is up, khalas. And by the way, this obsession isn't the only problem that comes from this disease. You find that on top of this obsession over your health and safety, you also live in this bubble of chronic stress. You're always on edge. Why? Because any small issue that threatens your health and safety, it makes you feel like your entire world is collapsing. When you look in the mirror and you see that you've grown your first white hair, right? You become depressed. When you see some wrinkles on your face, it upsets you deeply. When you become slightly ill, it terrifies you. When you get a small headache, you think you have cancer. Why? Because these signs remind you of the very thing that you're running away from, which is death. And that's pretty much all there is for this disease. And so to summarize, if you hate death, know that this is natural. But the why behind why you hate this death determines if you have the disease or not. If you hate death because it cuts off your good deeds, or you're simply just scared of what's to come, but you still continue working for your akhirah anyway, no problem, that's not the disease. But if you hate death because of your attachment to this world, because you don't want to let the dunya go, this is the disease that we're talking about. And having this disease leads you to live in chronic anxiety, doing whatever you can to preserve your life, to the point where even the smallest illness or the slightest wrinkle on your face sends you deep into depression. And so now that you know exactly what this disease is, let's go straight into the cure, inshallah ta'ala. And there's only one cure. The cure is to realize that you need to change the way you see the dunya. Realize that you're only just a traveler here, someone who's just passing by. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharibun aw abiru sabil." Be in this world as if you're a stranger or a traveler. Imagine if you booked a flight to the Maldives. Okay, let's give a visual representation here. Imagine you book a flight to the Maldives. Beautiful scenery, beaches, clear water, etc. And so you pack your suitcase and then you jump onto the plane. Now imagine as the plane is flying, you're a few hours into the flight, you look to your right and you see someone take their suitcase down and they unpack it and they get changed into their beach clothes and they put their sunglasses on and they rub sun cream into their arms and they raise up their legs as if they're already in the Maldives. What would you think of that person? You'd think they're crazy, right? Why is this person treating the plane journey like it's the final destination? Why is this person having so much fun? Plane journeys aren't fun. You have limited leg space. You can barely move. The food is very average. The toilets are disgusting. It's like a prison. You feel like you're trapped on there for multiple hours until you can finally get to your destination. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min." The world is a prison for the believer. Just like the plane feels like a prison when you travel, this dunya is a prison too. And ask yourself, how much fun can you really have on a plane? You can maybe watch some movies. You can look out the window, but you can't move. The person next to you smells. Your back hurts because you've been sat for so long. This is what the dunya is like. No matter how much fun you have in this dunya, it will always be limited, just like it's limited as if you're having fun on a plane. Only when you get to the Maldives can you really unpack your suitcase and begin to enjoy yourself. And by greater example, Jannah is infinitely better, and that's where true, lasting, eternal enjoyment is. But despite everything that I've said, most people are still deluded by the dunya and they unpack their suitcases on the plane, which is why Allah says, بَلْ تُؤْثِرُونَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. You prefer the life of this world, but the hereafter is far better and more lasting. So instead of hating death, realize that it's a portal to take you to your final destination. It should be something that you look forward to. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, تُحْفَةُ الْمُؤْمِنِ الْمَوْتِ. The gift to the believer is death. For the believer who prepared for their akhirah, death is a gift to them because it's the very thing that breaks the shackles that tied them. It frees them from this prison of the dunya. Subhanallah. So why don't you start preparing for your death instead of running away from it? Because if you do prepare for it, you'll eventually start looking forward to meeting Allah. And if you start noticing that you feel like you're looking forward to meeting Allah, know that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man ahabba liqa Allahi, ahabba Allahu liqa'uh." Whoever loves to meet Allah, Allah loves to meet him. And whoever hates to meet Allah, Allah hates to meet him. There's a lot of hope in this hadith, but there's also a lot of fear in this hadith, which are both necessary components, you can say, to change your mindset. So make a note of everything I've said in this cure, okay? And reflect on it every single day until eventually your mind changes, your paradigm changes, and inshallah it will melt the disease of hating death out of your heart.